Happy June, everyone. We are going to take a walk through and see some of the things that we need to be doing this week. This is the first week in June, and I just wanted to show you some of the chores that need to happen here. So here's some of the grapes. They're actually pretty good sized, and we've got a lot of crazy, woolly, wild grapevines that we need to start clipping. So I'll just come through here and I'll just start trimming these up. We don't want all of this stuff reaching through, and I like to keep the grapes mostly under control so that we can walk through the walkway without them reaching out and grabbing us. And right here we have a columbine, and it was absolutely beautiful this spring, but now it's time for us to cut it back, and so I'll cut it pretty low, or if I don't cut it, I'm going to end up with bunch of columbines everywhere, which is fine, but I've already got a bunch. And so you can see that they're starting to go to seed on us here. And if you do want to collect seed, these are in the seed pods. Right there's those little black seeds, and those end up everywhere in our yard. And columbines aren't necessarily the easiest plant to pull. They are beautiful, but we have plenty. Okay, here is some more grapes, and at this point I like to take them and spray them with kelp, just some liquid kelp, and the kelp helps these guys to plump up a little bit. And then I'll even come through at this size and start pinching off the bottom. That kind of plumps up the rest of the grapes and makes them bigger. So I'll just come through and just knock off the first inch, maybe 2 inches of these grape clusters. This just helps plump them up. I will spray these, and then all of this stuff here that's all over the place, I'm going to end up pruning and making them short. So I'll go right back to a grape cluster. So right here, I will cut right there. Okay. There's a few other things in here. This is some of the hanging pots, and you can see that we got a lot of yellowing going on. Well, this is perfectly normal for this time of year. This is the pansies, and we're starting to get warm, and this is just what they do. So I'll replace this with another hanging pot that looks pretty. Okay, this is a coleus that we planted as a hanging pot, and in order to keep it nice, I'll come through here and clip a lot of this spent flower off of here, and that'll make it fuller. Okay, down in here is the gooseberries. Looking good. Currants are coming on. These are in the walkway so that they get some shade, because here they burn up. There's a bunch of feverfew. It's time to harvest the flowers for these, and then we'll make tinctures out of this. It's all throughout this bed. And then there's some St. John's wort there. We'll harvest that as well and add that to some of the St. John's wort flowers that we have in the garden. Okay, this was a trial spot for us. It's kind of shady, so we thought that we would try to plant a blackberry here and see how well it does. And it's not too bad. We had some branches break off, big branches break off in the wind this year. So obviously we're not going to get as many as we were hoping. This was planted in October of last year. So we'll have a few on this one. And this particular variety will produce 2 different times. Okay, this is one of our little squash plants that we've planted around the fruit trees. And it is quite shady here, but we do this all the time. It does get enough sun for it to produce, but it's time to come in here and start opening up some of these plants so that they can breathe more, and then the bees can find these flowers for better pollination. As you can see, this one here is probably going to shrivel up due to no pollination. It's cherry season. This is Utah Giant. This tree is about 12 years old. It has the best cherries. We have a Bing, we have a Lambert, but this one's absolutely my favorite. It's a firm cherry, and the flavor is just outstanding. Just outstanding. They typically ripen the first week in June. This is one of our peach trees, and it has a lot of new growth. In some areas it's like 3 foot, and so I like to take a lot of that off to open it up so that the fruit can get some sunshine. They will develop a better flavor and a better color if you do some summer pruning. And I'll summer prune 2 to 3 times during the season, and I'll just come through here and to just knock off a lot of this new growth, or at least cut it back. It opens it up so that the fruit can get some sunshine. And because we plant so intensely, this helps the fruit to ripen, and it helps them to be sweeter. You don't want to do too much, though, if you live in an area like us, where you get sunburn on your fruit or even your trunks. But air circulation is good, and a little bit of sunshine is good. So I'll just come in here and take a lot out in the middle here. And of course, anything that's dead or broken we'll remove right now too. This keeps your trees healthier. Oops. Okay, I'll just finish doing this a little bit later. Okay, here's some more grapes, and we're just going to prune these up really quick. This just keeps them under control. It will make bigger grape clusters. And honestly, when I'm out here, I don't want them reaching out and grabbing me all the time. I like to walk through here. And I also like a little bit of sunshine coming into the orchard and the flower beds that are underneath it. So you'll notice that I cut close to the grape cluster themselves. These are pretty young grape clusters, and it's really, really long. And so I'll just come through here and just nip this off, and that'll improve the size of this grape cluster here. Really, there's not a whole lot there anyway. Just plumps these guys up. Then I'll come through once I'm completely done pruning, and I'll spray this all with a liquid kelp. Kelp is like a natural gibberellic acid that a lot of people and vineyards spray on their grapes. But kelp is just an organic choice. Okay, you can see how this has opened it up and let some sunshine in. I actually have to come through here and do this about every 2 weeks because the grapes grow so quickly this time of year. Okay, we've got a bunch of grape clippings. And look at these girls. They're so excited. Hi, girls. Do you want these? They're so funny. This is Millie. Millie's a year old. And then that's Bossy Tori. She's 12. She has a right to be ornery. Ah, you want this, Tori? Yeah. Okay. Here you go, girls. There you go. Eat them up. Bossy. Just boss. Okay, this is an apricot tree, which I did not get to thinning. Had I thinned it, we would have had much larger apricots. And at this point, it's really just too late to be doing it because they're starting to turn color. So optimal time to be doing that is when they are the size of a large marble. And this one comes on super early. This is actually a start from my parents' tree, just a little seedling. So it has some fond memories of their fruit tree, which they no longer have, it was planted 55 years ago. And this is a baby off of that one. Delicious fruit. Okay, we're over here by the onions, and as you can see right here, this is one of the things that we've got to do, and we've got to do this as soon as possible. This is a little seed head forming, and we want to remove these as soon as possible, because if they start to get big, then it's going to suck the life out of the plant, and we won't end up with a good sized bulb. And so we want to sever these as soon as possible. When they start to get big, this becomes hollow, and then you end up with water that will go right down the neck and then cause the onion to rot. So some of these have little seed heads forming, and so I'm going to come in here and just kind of check this out really quick. I do this on a weekly basis. I'll come through here and check all of these guys out. We're starting to get a little bit of bulb size growing right here, if you can see that. These are just some white Spanish onions. And then we've got some yellow Spanish onions over here. Let's see if we can get you in here. And we're starting to get some bulb size here growing. So we did have a seed head here that was kind of on the big side, and this was kind of late to be harvesting. So he might just be hollow all the way down. So this should have been done much earlier. See that hole right there? Water can get in there if we end up with rain or if we overhead water. And it can get in there and cause rot. Not always, but the bigger that cavity is, the more chances you have at it. So definitely get these little seed heads out as soon as you possibly can when they're little and they don't have that hollow neck, and you'll end up with a better harvest of onions. Also, the week that I start to fertilize with the liquid fertilizer right on the onions themselves. So I like to fertilize with a liquid kelp, and I just put it in my spray bottle and come through here and just mist everything really good. And I'll do that every weekly until they start to, the tops start to fall over. Here is some kohlrabi, and it's time to get these harvested as well. Golf ball size is the best size up to a small baseball. And these are great. You just slice these super thin, throw them in a salad. You can steam them, but I like to just eat them fresh, sliced super thin in a salad. Or you can use these in a mixture of fermented foods. They're excellent like that too. Okay, the bell peppers are starting to set. And one thing that I want you to see here is I'm actually shading this with my hat. And now you see that bright sunshine there. So the problem with that is when we start getting to be 90 degrees and above, that sun starts to get intense, and that can easily burn these peppers because they don't have enough foliage to protect them. So I'll just put a little lightweight row cover over them just to protect them from that hot UV sun. And that's going to have to happen this week. Or what will happen is that the sun will burn it, and it'll get like a sunken part on the wall facing the south or the west side, the hottest part where the sun hits it during the day. Okay, this is our pistachio tree, and the nuts are coming along really well. So we are the very first week in June, and this is the week that I have on my calendar that I have to drench the roots really heavily. If I don't do this, the nuts don't fill up in their shells all the way. I'm not necessarily a pistachio grower, but we do have a couple of trees. We have 2 females and 1 male. And what I have found from experience that if I flood and water them deeply at the first week in June, we've always had a better crop. So this week we will flood this, the root system on this, and then they're really pretty drought tolerant tree. But they